The wrapping paper was silver and gold, a heavy, expensive foil that crinkled satisfyingly under my fingers. I was sitting on the floor of my living room, surrounded by piles of toys, clothes, and gadgets. It was 3 weeks before Christmas, and the air in my house smelled like pine needles and cinnamon. I had spent the last 2 hours meticulously curling ribbons, imagining the looks on my nieces' and nephews' faces, and of course, the polite, expectant looks of my parents. I'm Jennifer. I'm 38 years old, and if you looked at my life on paper, you'd say I have it all. I run a successful event planning and high-end real estate staging company in Chicago. I have a beautiful home, 2 incredible children, Emily, who is 6, and Leo, who is 3, and a bank account that reflects years of 80-hour work weeks and missed vacations. But if you looked closer, specifically at the contacts list on my phone under Mom and Dad, you'd see the cracks in the foundation. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, vibrating against the wood. The screen lit up with a picture of my mother, Barbara. She was wearing a wide-brimmed hat in the photo, standing in front of the lake house I had paid for. I smiled instinctively, though a small knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. It always did. "Hi, Mom," I answered, tucking the phone between my ear and shoulder so I could keep taping a box. I was just wrapping the gifts for the boys. "I found that vintage train set Kevin wanted for little Timothy." There was a pause on the other end. Not a comfortable silence, but a cold, static-filled gap that usually meant I had done something wrong or I was about to be asked for money. "Jennifer." My mother's voice was crisp, devoid of any holiday warmth. It was her business voice, the one she used when she was trying to sound more important than she was. "Listen, we need to talk about the logistics for the Christmas party this year." "Sure," I said, putting down the tape dispenser. "I already transferred the catering deposit to the company account, and the florist is confirmed for the 24th. Do you need more for the wine budget?" No, the money is fine," she said quickly. My mother never turned down money. "It's about the guest list. Your brother, Kevin, has invited some very high-profile potential investors, people from the city. Serious money, Jennifer." "That's great for Kevin," I said, trying to inject enthusiasm into my voice. My older brother, Kevin, was 42 and had been launching a startup for the last decade. His ventures usually ended with my parents taking out a second mortgage, or more recently, me quietly covering his debts to keep the family name clean. "So what do you need me to do? Bring extra appetizers?" "Actually," my mother cleared her throat, "we've decided to make this year's celebration an adults-only affair, a black tie evening, very sophisticated. We want to maintain a certain aesthetic." I froze. "Adults only? Mom, it's Christmas Eve." "What do you mean?" "I mean no children," she said, her voice sharpening. "Kevin thinks, and I agree, that having toddlers running around, screaming and spilling juice on the new Persian rugs, which are exquisite, by the way, would ruin the ambiance. These investors need to see elegance, Jennifer. They need to see that we are a serious family." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Mom, Leo is 3. Emily is 6. They aren't wild animals. They're your grandchildren. Are you saying I can't bring my kids to Christmas at Grandma's house?" "It's not just Grandma's house, Jennifer. It's a venue for your brother's future," she snapped. "Don't be selfish. You can get a sitter, or just come for an hour to drop off the gifts and then go back to your place with them." Honestly, last year Emily was so loud opening her presents, it gave me a migraine. I looked over at the doorway. Emily was standing there. She was holding her favorite stuffed bear, her eyes wide. She had clearly heard me say Mom and Christmas. "But it's Christmas," I whispered into the phone, turning away from my daughter. "I've already bought the matching pajamas. The kids have been making you cards for weeks." Jennifer, stop being dramatic. You can do your little pajama thing at your own house. This is about the family image. Ashley agrees with me completely. Ashley, Kevin's new wife, a woman who looked at children as if they were sticky carriers of disease. So let me get this straight, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I am paying for the catering? I paid for the decorations. I paid for the renovations on the living room you're so worried about protecting. But my children aren't welcome? You're paying because you can afford it, Mom said dismissively. That's your contribution. Kevin contributes his vision. We all have our roles. Just make sure the check for the liquor delivery clears by tomorrow. I have to go. Ashley and I are going for facials. The line went dead. I sat there holding the phone, feeling a mixture of nausea and disbelief. I had been the good daughter for so long, the provider, the fixer, and here I was, being told my children were essentially set dressing that didn't fit the theme. I felt a small hand on my shoulder. I turned around. Emily was looking at me, her lower lip trembling. "Mommy?" she whispered. "Yes, honey," I managed to choke out, forcing a smile. "Why can't we go to Grandma's?" she asked softly. "Is it because I spilled the juice last time? I promise I'll be good." My heart broke, literally shattered. I pulled her into my lap, burying my face in her hair so she wouldn't see the tears springing to my eyes. "No, baby, it's not because of the juice," I soothed her. "Does Grandma hate us?" she asked. The question was so innocent, so quiet, yet it hit me harder than a physical slap. I pulled back and looked at her. I looked at the confusion and hurt in her eyes, and in that moment, something shifted inside me. The sadness didn't disappear, but it hardened. It crystallized into something cold and sharp. "No, honey," I said, wiping her cheek. My voice sounded different to my own ears, stronger, darker. "Grandma doesn't hate us. Grandma just forgot who feeds her." "Who feeds her?" Emily looked confused. "It's a grown-up joke, sweetie." I stood up, lifting her with me. "Don't you worry. We are going to have the best Christmas ever. Just you, me, and Leo. And Grandma, well, Grandma is going to get a very special present this year." I set Emily down and walked over to my desk. I picked up my phone and opened the text thread with my mother. My fingers hovered over the screen. I wanted to scream at her. I wanted to list every dollar I had spent, every sacrifice I had made. But I knew Barbara. She would just call me hysterical. She would gaslight me until I apologized for being upset. No, words were useless. Action was required. Understood. Confirmed. Then I blocked her number. Thank you so much for being here and listening to my story. It's not easy to relive this, but I know I'm not alone. Before I tell you what I did next, I'd love to know where you are joining me from. Please comment your city or state down below. Seeing your support means the world to me. Now, let me tell you about the history that led to this moment. To understand why my mother's phone call was the final straw, you have to understand the dynamic of my family. For as long as I can remember, there were two categories of people in the Anderson household: the talent and the support staff. Kevin was the talent. He was the talent. He was the golden boy, the firstborn son with the charming smile and the big ideas. When we were kids, if Kevin got a C on a test, it was because the teacher didn't understand his genius. If I got an A, it was simply expected. Good job, Jennifer. Now go help your brother with his homework. I was the support staff. I was the reliable one, the one who didn't need attention, didn't need praise, and apparently didn't need love, just instructions. 5 years ago, the family dynamic shifted from emotional neglect to financial dependency. My father, Richard, had made some bad investments. He was a good man in his heart, I used to think, but weak. He couldn't say no to my mother's spending habits or Kevin's business opportunities. They were on the brink of losing everything. The foreclosure notices were piling up on the kitchen counter like unread magazines. I had just landed my biggest contract yet, staging a series of luxury penthouses in downtown Chicago. I had cash and I had credit. I remember the family meeting vividly. Mom was crying, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief, talking about the shame of losing the family home. Kevin was pacing, blaming the economy, blaming the banks, blaming everyone but himself. Dad just sat there, looking gray and defeated. "I can fix this," I had said. Those 4 words became the curse of my life. I didn't just lend them money. I bought the debt. I paid off the mortgage entirely to stop the foreclosure. But I did something else, something my lawyer, Mr. Thompson, had insisted on at the time. I didn't give them the money directly. I created an LLC, a limited liability company, and the LLC bought the house. Technically, legally, on every piece of paper that mattered, I owned the house. My parents were tenants with a $0 lease, dependent on my goodwill. But to the outside world, to their country club friends, to the extended family, they still owned it. I let them keep their pride. I let them pretend they were still the wealthy patriarch and matriarch. "It's just a formality, Mom," I had told her when she signed the papers without reading them. She was too busy looking at luxury cars online, already planning how to spend the money she thought she had saved. And it wasn't just the house. Over the last 5 years, I became the silent engine of their lifestyle. I bought my father a new sedan for his birthday because his old truck was unsafe. Mom complained that the leather wasn't the right shade of beige. "It clashes with my coat, Jennifer, but I suppose it will do." I funded Kevin's organic juice bar, which failed in 6 months because he hired his fraternity brothers to run it and they drank all the inventory. When I refused to fund the next venture, Mom called me selfish. "Your brother is a visionary, Jennifer. You're just a worker bee. You don't understand the creative mind. You should support him. That's what family does." Family. That word was weaponized against me constantly. Last Thanksgiving, I overheard my father talking to his golf buddy. "Yeah, Kevin is looking at expanding his portfolio. We're very proud." "Jennifer? Oh, she's doing fine. She's assisting with the estate management." Assisting? I was the owner. I was the CEO of their existence. But in their narrative, I was just the assistant, the wallet, the ATM with a pulse. I looked around my own living room, at the life I had built for myself and my children. I was proud of it. I had worked for every inch of it. I didn't need their validation. But there is a part of every child, no matter how old, that desperately wants their parents to see them, to value them. I thought about the receipts. I had a filing cabinet in my home office. It was locked, fireproof, and filled with 5 years of bank statements, transfer confirmations, tax payments for their property, and credit card bills I had paid off for them. Mr. Thompson had always told me, "Jennifer, keep the receipts. One day, gratitude will run out and you'll need leverage." I used to hate him saying that. It felt cynical. How could my own mother be someone I needed leverage against? But as I replayed the phone call, "Don't bring your kids, they ruin the aesthetics, Grandma hates us," I realized Thompson wasn't cynical. He was prophetic. They didn't see me as a daughter. They saw me as a resource. And when a resource becomes inconvenient, like when it comes with 2 small children who might disturb the investors, you hide it away. You extract the value, the money for the party, and discard the person. I walked into my home office. The air felt cooler in here. I unlocked the filing cabinet. The metal drawer slid open with a smooth, heavy sound. I pulled out the file marked Property, 42 Oakwood Drive. Inside was the deed, the trust agreement, the power of attorney documents. I flipped through them. My signature was everywhere. My name, my LLC. "You want an adults-only Christmas?" I whispered to the empty room. "You want to impress investors with your assets?" My sadness was gone. It had been replaced by a clarity so sharp it felt like a diamond in my chest. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to give them exactly what they asked for. I was going to give them a Christmas they would never forget. After I hung up the phone and comforted Emily, a small, foolish part of me thought, maybe I misunderstood. Maybe she's just stressed. We do that, don't we? We make excuses for our abusers because the truth is too painful to accept. So I did something I shouldn't have done. I called the house landline about 10 minutes later, thinking I would talk to my dad. I wanted to hear him say, "Don't listen to your mother, Jennifer. Bring the kids. I want to see my grandkids." The phone rang 3 times, and then someone picked up, but they didn't say hello. "Honestly, Kevin, she's such a martyr." My mother's voice came through the line. She must have fumbled the receiver when picking up, or maybe she thought she had hung up on someone else. I was listening to a live broadcast of my own assassination. "I know, Mom." Kevin's voice, smug, oily. "But did she transfer the money for the caterer? I promised the guys we'd have the Wagyu beef sliders." "She said she did," Barbara sighed. "God, she's exhausting, whining about the kids. Oh, Emily made a card. Who cares? That child is always sticky. And the little one, Leo, he screams if you look at him wrong." "Just make sure she pays the bills before you cut her off for the night," a female voice chimed in. "Ashley, my sister-in-law. I don't want her moping around in her cheap department store dress while I'm trying to network with the CEO of Nexus. It ruins the vibe. We need this house to look like we own the world, not like we're running a daycare." "Don't worry," Mom laughed. It was a cruel, cackling sound I rarely heard. I told her to stay home. I told her it was for the investors. She's so desperate for approval, she'll probably send an extra gift just to apologize for being annoying. "Good," Kevin said, "because once this deal goes through, Mom, I'm going to buy you a real house, not this dusty old thing Jennifer holds over our heads." "Oh, Kevin, you're such a good son," Mom cooed. "My golden boy." I lowered the phone from my ear. My hand was shaking, but not from fear, from rage. A pure, white-hot rage that started in my toes and burned all the way up to my throat. Sticky. Cheap. Holds over our heads. They weren't just ungrateful. They were mocking me. They were using my money to fund a party where they would actively exclude me and my children, all while lying to investors about their wealth that I provided. I looked at the picture of my family on my desk. Me, Emily, and Leo. We were happy. We were enough. I didn't hang up the phone. I pressed the mute button and just listened for another minute, letting their poison fill up my tank. I needed every drop of this anger. I needed to remember this moment when they came crying later. "Does she suspect anything about the refinancing?" Kevin asked suddenly. My ears perked up. "Refinancing?" "No," Dad's voice. He was in the room, too. "She thinks the papers I sent her last week were for the tax adjustments. If she signs the waiver, we can pull out another $50,000 against the equity." "Dad," Kevin warned, "you need to make sure she signs it before Christmas. I need that capital." "I'll handle her," Dad said. "Jennifer does whatever I tell her. She's soft." Soft. I gently ended the call. They were trying to refinance my house. They were trying to forge documents or trick me into signing away equity in a property they didn't even own. It was fraud, plain and simple. And my father, the man I had protected, the man I bought a car for, was the ringleader. That was the moment. The snap. I stood up and walked to the window. It was snowing outside, big, fluffy flakes covering the Chicago streets. It looked peaceful. Inside me, a war had just been declared. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't the daughter seeking approval. I was a businesswoman who had just discovered embezzlement in her company. I picked up my cell phone and sent that text I mentioned earlier. Understood. Confirmed. Then I opened my banking app. I looked at the joint account I shared with my mother, the household expenses account. It had a balance of $12,000, meant for the party, the bills, and their Christmas shopping. I transferred every single cent back to my personal savings. Balance, 0. Then I opened the credit card portal, the American Express Platinum card that Kevin carried, the one attached to my business account as an employee perk, despite him never doing a day's work. Status, active. Limit, $50,000. I clicked suspend card. Reason, theft/loss. I wasn't done. I sat down at my computer and composed an email to my travel agent. Subject, urgent booking, Hawaii. Message, I need 3 tickets to Maui, first class, leaving December 23rd, returning January 2nd. Best resort you can find. Kid-friendly. Expensive. Put it on the card I just saved from being maxed out by my brother. I hit send. Then I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in months. Law offices of Thompson and Associates, a receptionist answered. Hi, this is Jennifer Anderson. Is Mr. Thompson in? It's an emergency. I need to talk about an eviction and a forensic audit. One moment, Miss Anderson. While I waited on hold, I looked at the wrapping paper on the floor. I picked up the box containing the vintage train set for Kevin's son. I wouldn't be giving it to him. Not because I blamed the child, but because I knew Kevin would just return it for cash or let Ashley throw it out because it wasn't modern enough. Mr. Thompson came on the line. Jennifer, is everything all right? No, Arthur, I said, my voice steady and cold as steel. Everything is wrong, but I'm about to make it right. I need you to prepare a notice to vacate, and I need you to be available on Christmas Eve. I'm willing to pay triple your hourly rate. Christmas Eve? He sounded surprised. That's unconventional. It's not a holiday visit, Arthur, I said. It's a performance review, and my family is about to be fired. The next morning, I was sitting in Arthur Thompson's office. The room smelled of mahogany and old paper, the scent of consequences. Arthur was a man in his 60s, sharp as a tack, who had seen families tear each other apart over much less than a multi-million-dollar estate. He adjusted his glasses and looked at the stack of documents I had brought. Let me get this straight, Arthur said, tapping a pen against his chin. They are hosting a party for investors, claiming the house is theirs, and attempting to refinance it behind your back? Correct, I said. I overheard my father telling Kevin he would handle me to get a signature for an equity withdrawal. Arthur shook his head. That is criminal fraud, Jennifer. Attempted, at least. But since the title is held by the LLC, they can't actually refinance without your explicit consent as the manager of the LLC. Anything they tried to sign would be void, but the intent is malicious. I don't just want to stop them, I said, leaning forward. I want to end this charade. They treated my children like garbage. They called them sticky and cheap. They want an adults-only Christmas? Fine. They can have an adults-only eviction. Arthur pulled a file. The trust agreement we set up 5 years ago is airtight. They are tenants at will. You can terminate their residency with 30 days' notice. However, given the evidence of attempted fraud and misuse of assets, he smiled, a shark-like grin, we can argue a breach of the good faith clause in the occupancy agreement. We can serve them an immediate notice to quit. I want them out, I said, but I want them to know why. I want it to happen when they feel the most secure, when their arrogance is at its peak. Christmas Eve, Arthur surmised. During the party. Exactly. I can have a process server there, he suggested. No, I shook my head. I want you there. You have the gravitas. They fear you. And I want you to deliver the news personally. I'll pay whatever retainer you need. Arthur looked at me for a long moment. He had known me since I was a scared young woman trying to save her parents from bankruptcy. He had watched me build my empire while they leached off me. He seemed to realize that this wasn't just about legalities. It was about reclaiming my dignity. I'll do it, he said. My wife hates my cooking anyway. I'd be happy to crash a party. We spent the next 2 hours mapping out the assets. It was worse than I thought. Kevin had been charging personal expenses to the business card I gave him for emergency house repairs. $400 at a liquor store, $1,200 at a tailored suit shop, $300 for a spa day, presumably for Ashley. This is embezzlement, Arthur stated slatly. You could press charges. Let's hold that in our back pocket, I said. The threat of jail time will be more useful than the jail time itself, especially when it comes to custody. Custody? Arthur raised an eyebrow. Kevin has a son, Timothy. He's 4. If Kevin goes down, I want to make sure Timothy is safe. Ashley doesn't care about him. She treats him like an accessory. You're playing a long game, Arthur noted with approval. I'm done playing, Arthur. I'm finishing the game. We drafted the documents. Notice of termination of tenancy. 2. Demand for repayment of misappropriated funds, $14,500 total. 3. A cease and desist regarding the refinancing. 4. Proof of ownership of the property. One more thing, I said, standing up to leave. The car, the BMW my father drives. Leased under the company name? Yes. Can we repossess it? If he's in breach of the company policy, which, by attempting to defraud the company, he is, yes, I can have a tow truck on standby. Do it, I said. Coordinate it for 8 p.m., right after dinner. Leaving the lawyer's office, I felt a strange lightness. For years, I had carried the weight of their financial survival on my shoulders. I worried about their bills, their image, their happiness. Now, I was dropping the weight. I wasn't their savior anymore. I was their landlord, and rent was overdue. I needed more ammunition. I knew Kevin. He was a liar, but he was a convincing one. If I confronted him, he would spin a story, blame the banks, or claim it was a misunderstanding. I needed hard proof of his current financial state to ruin his credibility with these investors he was trying to impress. I drove to a small coffee shop on the outskirts of town. Sitting in a booth in the back was Linda. Linda was Kevin's ex-wife, the mother of his first child, a daughter he hadn't seen in 3 years. My mother had driven Linda away. She called Linda low class because she worked as a nurse and didn't come from money. When they divorced, the family circled the wagons. They hid assets. They made sure Linda got almost nothing. I had been younger then and too afraid of my parents to speak up. I had stayed silent. It was one of my biggest regrets. Linda looked up as I approached. She looked tired but kind. Jennifer, she said, guarding her coffee cup, I was surprised you called. Is everything okay? No, I sat down. It's not, but I'm finally fixing it. I'm cutting them off, Linda. All of them. Linda's eyes widened. Really? Your mother too? Especially her. I took a breath. I know I wasn't there for you during the divorce. I'm sorry. I was a coward. Linda softened. You were young, Jen, and your mother, she's a force of nature, a hurricane. I need your help, I said. Kevin is hosting a gala for investors. He's trying to raise capital for some tech startup, but I know he's broke. I need to know how broke. Linda let out a dry laugh. Broke? Jennifer, he's not just broke, he's drowning. He owes me $20,000 in back child support. I have the court documents right here. She tapped her purse. And that's not all. He's being sued by his former business partner for fraud. The case is public record, but he's managed to keep it quiet. Fraud? He took investment money for that juice bar and used it to pay off gambling debts. Linda reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. I brought copies. I figured if you were finally waking up, you'd want the truth. I opened the folder. It was a treasure trove of disaster. Court orders for unpaid child support. A civil lawsuit for misuse of funds. Credit card rejection letters sent to his old address, Linda's house. He's desperate, Linda said. That's why he's pushing this Christmas party so hard. He needs new money to pay off the old money before the lawsuits hit the news. He's running a Ponzi scheme, Jen, and he's using your house as the bait. He told the investors he owns the house, I realized. He's using it as collateral, or at least as proof of solvency. Exactly. If you expose him, he goes to jail. I looked at the documents. If he goes to jail, what happens to Timothy? Ashley won't keep him, Linda said bluntly. She barely tolerates him now. She'll dump him on your parents, and your parents are too old and too selfish, I finished. I'd take him, Linda said quietly. He's my daughter's half-brother. We're family, but I'd need help. You'll have it, I promised. If this goes the way I plan, there will be plenty of resources to make sure the kids are okay, just not the adults. I took the folder. Thank you, Linda. This changes everything. One more thing, Linda said as I stood up. Your mother called me yesterday. She did? Yeah. She wanted to know if I still had the silver tea set she lent Kevin when we were married. She wanted it back for the party. She said, "We need everything to look perfect for the people who actually matter." I clenched my jaw. She won't need the tea set where she's going. Give them hell, Jen, Linda smiled. It was a genuine smile. Oh, I won't just give them hell, I said, putting on my sunglasses. I'm giving them reality, which, for them, is far worse. I walked out of the coffee shop with the final nail for Kevin's coffin in my purse. I had the legal right to evict them, I had the moral high ground, and now I had proof that my brother was a criminal who was endangering everyone around him. The alliance was formed, the weapons were gathered. Now all I had to do was set the stage. The days leading up to Christmas were a blur of calculated deception. I had to play the part of the obedient daughter one last time to ensure the trap worked perfectly. My mother texted me constantly. Did you send the wine money? The cleaners need to come twice. Pay them. Kevin needs a tuxedo rental. His is acting up. I replied to every text with polite, short answers. Sorted. Paid. Done. But I didn't pay them from my accounts. I used the last remaining credit on the joint cards that were about to be frozen. I wanted them to have everything they asked for. I wanted the house to look magnificent. The higher the pedestal, the harder the fall. On December 23rd, the day before the party, I packed our bags for Hawaii. Emily and Leo were jumping with excitement. Are we going to see Santa in the jungle? Leo asked, clutching his toy dinosaur. Maybe, I laughed, kissing his head. We're going to see sunshine and drink pineapple juice, and nobody is going to tell us to be quiet. Before we left for the airport, I prepared the package. I took a brand new iPad Pro. I set it up with a specific account. I downloaded Zoom and set it to auto-answer for calls from my personal ID. I also disabled the ability to turn it off without a passcode. I placed the iPad in a beautiful velvet box. Beneath the iPad, I placed a single manila envelope containing a photocopy of the notice to quit and a copy of the deed highlighting my name. I wrapped the box in the same gold and silver paper I had been using that first night. I tied it with a massive silk bow. I attached a card. To Mom, Dad, Kevin, and Ashley. Open at 7 p.m. sharp on Christmas Eve. A surprise to celebrate our family's future. Love, Jennifer. I had a courier service deliver it to the house. I tracked the delivery on my phone. 10 a.m. Delivered to front porch. 10:05 a.m. Text from Mom. Package received. It looks expensive. Good. At least you're trying to make up for your attitude. Have a nice trip to wherever. Don't call us, we'll be busy. I smiled at the screen. Oh, I won't call Mom. I'll broadcast. We boarded the plane. As we took off, soaring above the gray, snowy clouds of Chicago, I felt a massive weight lift. I ordered a glass of champagne. To aesthetics, I whispered to myself, clinking my glass against the window. In Chicago, the pieces were moving into place. Mr. Thompson had his instructions. The tow truck driver had the address. The investors were preparing their suits, unaware they were walking into a crime scene investigation rather than a business pitch. And my family? They were probably preening in front of the mirrors, confident in their delusion that they were the kings and queens of the castle. Little did they know, the castle was made of sand, and the tide was coming in at 7 p.m. Chicago, Christmas Eve, 6:30 p.m. I wasn't there physically, but thanks to the hidden cameras I had installed years ago for security, which my parents insisted on to protect their assets, I could check the feed on my phone from the hotel room in Maui. The house looked spectacular. I had to give myself credit. My staging company knew how to dress a room. The crystal chandelier sparkled, the 12-foot tree was draped in hand-blown glass ornaments, and the fire roared in the hearth. But the people inside ruined the beauty. Kevin was wearing a tuxedo that I knew cost $1,000. He was holding a glass of scotch, holding court in the center of the living room. Around him were about 20 guests, older men in suits, younger tech bro types. These were the investors. Yes, I heard Kevin say through the audio feed, we've been in this house for generations. It's the Anderson family seat, really. We're leveraging the equity to fuel the Phase 2 expansion of the Nexus project. Lies. Pure, unadulterated lies. Ashley was gliding around in a silver sequined gown, looking like a human disco ball. She was talking to a woman near the buffet. Oh, my sister-in-law? No, she couldn't make it. She's struggling a bit. Single mother, you know. We try to support her, but she's very unstable. We decided it was best for the children not to be exposed to this level of sophistication. My blood boiled. Unstable? Support her? The audacity was breathtaking. My mother, Barbara, was sitting on the queen chair by the fire, accepting compliments like a monarch. Thank you. Yes, I decorated it myself. I have a natural eye for design. I watched as the clock ticked closer to 7 p.m. My father was the only one who looked nervous. He kept checking his watch, glancing at the door. Maybe he felt the sword of Damocles hanging over his head. Or maybe he was just worried the caterers wouldn't refill the shrimp fast enough. At 6:55 p.m., Kevin clapped his hands. Everyone, attention please. The room went quiet. I want to thank you all for coming, Kevin announced, his voice booming with unearned confidence. Tonight is about family and about the future. We are on the brink of something huge, and to celebrate, my mother tells me there is a special gift from my sister. Poor Jennifer couldn't be here, but she wanted to contribute. He pointed to the gold box sitting on the coffee table, the Trojan horse. She probably bought us a clock, Ashley snickered, loud enough for the microphone to catch. She has no imagination. Let's see, Kevin laughed. He reached for the ribbon. In Maui, it was 2 p.m. I was sitting on the lanai, looking at the ocean. The air was warm and smelled of hibiscus. I had my laptop open, the camera ready. Okay, showtime, I whispered. Kevin tore off the paper. He opened the velvet box. "It's an iPad?" He looked confused. "What the hell kind of gift is this?" He lifted it up. As soon as the device sensed movement, the screen flared to life. The Zoom app launched automatically. My face filled the screen. Because I had connected the iPad to the room's Bluetooth sound system, another feature I had paid for, my voice didn't just come out of the tablet. It boomed through the Bose speakers hidden in the ceiling, filling the entire house. "Merry Christmas, family," I said. The reaction was instantaneous. The guests jumped. Kevin nearly dropped the iPad. "Jennifer," Mom shrieked, clutching her pearls. "What is this? Why are you on the speakers?" "I wanted to be part of the festivities," I said, keeping my voice pleasant but firm. I saw myself on the screen in the living room. I looked tan, relaxed, and utterly in control. "Kevin, put the iPad on the mantel stand. I want to address the room." Kevin, too stunned to argue, did as he was told. Now I had a full view of the party. The investors were looking at each other, confused. "Who are all these lovely people?" I asked. "Are these the investors you told me about, Kevin? The ones you're asking for $500,000? "Jennifer, shut up," Kevin hissed, trying to find the off button, but there wasn't one on the screen. I had locked the interface. "Technical difficulties, folks. My sister is playing a prank." "It's not a prank," I said, my voice cutting through his panic. "It's a disclosure. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Anderson. I'm the one who paid for the shrimp you're eating. I'm the one who paid for the tuxedo Kevin is wearing." "Turn her off!" Ashley screamed. "Pull the plug!" "If you touch that plug," I said, dropping the smile, "Mr. Thompson will add destruction of private property to the list of charges." The name Thompson made my father freeze. He knew. "What are you doing, Jennifer?" Dad whispered, his face pale. "I'm clearing up a misunderstanding," I said. "Kevin told you all that this house is collateral. He told you it belongs to the Anderson family seat, but that's a lie." I held up a document to my camera in Hawaii. It appeared clearly on the iPad screen in Chicago. "This is the deed to 42 Oakwood Drive," I announced. "It is owned solely by J.A. Holdings, LLC. I am the sole proprietor. My parents are tenants. Kevin is a guest, and none of them have permission to use this property for commercial solicitation." The room erupted in murmurs. One of the older investors, a man with a gray beard, stepped forward. "Is this true? Kevin, you showed us a title." "It was a forgery," I said simply. "Ask him to produce the original." Kevin was sweating profusely. "She's lying. She's jealous. She's just a bitter single mom who—" "I'm a bitter single mom who just cut off your credit cards, Kevin," I interrupted. "Check your phone. You'll find the notification from Amex. Card suspended. Try to buy a drink later. See what happens." Kevin scrambled for his phone. His face went gray. "And Mom?" I turned my gaze to Barbara. "You said my children ruin the aesthetics? You said Grandma hates us? Well, I decided to remove the problem. We aren't there. But since you forgot who owns the house, I figured I should remind you." "You ungrateful brat!" Mom screamed, standing up. She looked deranged, her elegance shattering. "After everything we did for you, we raised you." "You raised me to be an ATM," I corrected, "and the machine is out of order." "Get out of my house!" she shrieked. "It's not your house, Mom," I said softly, "and to prove it, Arthur, you can come in now." The front door opened. It wasn't locked. The caterers had been coming in and out. Arthur Thompson walked in. He wasn't wearing a Santa suit. He was wearing a charcoal wool coat and carrying a leather briefcase. Behind him were two large men in security uniforms, off-duty officers I had hired for protection. The music died. The room was silent except for the crackling fire. "Good evening," Arthur said. His voice was calm, authoritative. He walked straight to Kevin. "Kevin Anderson?" "Who are you?" Kevin stammered. "I am Jennifer Anderson's legal counsel. These are for you." He slapped a thick stack of papers into Kevin's chest. "What is this?" "Notice of immediate eviction for breach of contract, specifically the illegal activity clause regarding the attempted fraud and solicitations occurring on the premises tonight." Arthur turned to the guests. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption, but I must inform you that you are currently trespassing on private property. The owner has revoked all permissions for this gathering. I suggest you leave before the police arrive to file official reports." The investors didn't need to be told twice. They were business people. They smelled a rat, and Kevin was the rat. "You said you owned the equity, Kevin," the gray-bearded man said, his voice dangerous. "You took my deposit checks this morning." I can explain," Kevin backed away. "You can explain it to the fraud squad," the man said. He pulled out his phone. "I'm calling my bank to stop the payment, and then I'm calling the district attorney." The guests began to stream out. Some grabbed their coats, others just left them. They looked at my parents with disgust. The illusion of the high-class Andersons had evaporated. "No, don't go." Ashley cried, grabbing a woman's arm. "It's just a misunderstanding. Have some dessert." The woman shook her off. "Get away from me. You people are frauds." Within 5 minutes, the room was empty of guests. Only my family, Arthur, the security guards, and the catering staff remained. The caterers looked awkward, holding trays of Wagyu sliders. "You can go too," Arthur told the staff. "Send the final bill to Miss Anderson's office, but leave the food. She paid for it." When the door closed, the screaming started. "You ruined everything!" Kevin roared at the iPad screen. He looked like he wanted to punch it, but the security guard stepped in front of the mantel. "I ruined your scam, Kevin," I said. "There's a difference." "How could you do this to us?" Mom was crying now, ugly, mascara-stained tears. "On Christmas Eve, we are your family." "Family?" I laughed, a harsh sound. "Family doesn't try to steal my home equity behind my back, Dad. Arthur, show them the refinancing application." Arthur pulled out a document. "We intercepted this yesterday. It has Jennifer's signature on it, but Jennifer was in a meeting with me when this was signed. It's a forgery. Richard, did you sign this?" Dad slumped onto the sofa. He looked small, defeated. "We needed the money. Kevin said the return would be huge. We were going to pay it back before you noticed." "That's called theft, Dad," I said, "and because of that, the trust is dissolved. You have violated the terms of occupancy." "So what? You're kicking us out?" Ashley sneered. "You can't. Squatters' rights. We have 30 days. Arthur smiled. "Actually, under the specific terms of the guest occupancy agreement your in-laws signed, which lists them as guests, not tenants, we can revoke access immediately if a crime is committed on the premises. Forgery is a crime. You have 1 hour to vacate." "1 hour?" Mom gasped. But it's snowing. Where will we go?" "I hear the Motel 6 on the highway has vacancies," I said. "It's very affordable. Fits the budget." "I'm not going to a motel," Mom screamed. "Then you can go to the shelter," I said. "Choice is yours, but the locks are being changed at 9 p.m. "Jennifer, please," Dad looked at the camera. "We're your parents." "And I'm the daughter you forgot," I said. "I'm the support staff. Well, the staff just quit." The next hour was a masterclass in chaos. My mother didn't pack clothes. She tried to pack the silverware. I watched on the screen as she ran around the dining room, sweeping silver forks and spoons into her Louis Vuitton bag. "Arthur," I said. "Way ahead of you." Arthur signaled the security guard. The guard stepped forward and gently but firmly took the bag from Mom. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The inventory list states that all furnishings and flatware are property of the LLC. You can take personal clothing and toiletries only. This is my grandmother's silver, she shrieked. Actually, Mom, I said, you sold Grandma's silver 10 years ago to pay for a cruise. I bought that set at an auction to replace it. It's mine. She stared at the camera with pure hatred. I wish you had never been born. The feeling is becoming mutual, I replied calmly. Kevin was frantic. He was on his phone trying to call someone, anyone, to bail him out. But word travels fast. The investors had likely already started texting their circles. He was radioactive. Ashley was stripping the ornaments off the tree. I bought these. These are mine. Let her have the plastic ones, I told Arthur. I don't care. At 8 p.m., the lights outside flashed orange. What's that? Dad asked, looking out the window. That, I said, taking a sip of my iced tea in Hawaii, is the repo man. Repo? For what? The BMW, Dad. It's a company car. Since you are no longer an employee or consultant of the company, and since you participated in attempted fraud against the company, the vehicle is being reclaimed. You can't take my car, Dad yelled, showing the first sign of real anger. I love that car. You should have loved your daughter more, I said. They watched in horror as the tow truck backed into the driveway. The driver hooked up the gleaming black sedan. This is insane, Kevin yelled. You're a psychopath, Jennifer. I'm a mother protecting her children's inheritance, I shot back. You wanted to gamble with the house? You lost. You wanted to cut my kids out? You're out. Arthur checked his watch. 15 minutes remaining. I suggest you grab your coats. It's 10 degrees outside. The reality finally set in. They weren't going to talk their way out of this. They started grabbing random things. Coats, boots, a half-eaten box of chocolates. Kevin grabbed a bottle of scotch, but the guard took it from him. Company property. Screw you, Kevin spat. They shuffled towards the door. Mom in her fur coat, looking like a deposed queen. Dad looking broken. Kevin and Ashley looking furious. As they stood in the doorway, the snow swirling behind them, Mom looked back at the iPad. You'll regret this, she hissed. You'll die alone. Better alone than with wolves, I said. Goodbye, Mom. Merry Christmas. Arthur closed the door. I heard the lock click. Then I watched on the exterior cameras. They stood on the porch for a moment, shivering. The BMW was gone. Their guests were gone. The house was locked. They had to call an Uber. I watched them wait in the cold for 20 minutes. Mom was shivering violently. Ashley was yelling at Kevin. Dad was just staring at the ground. When the Uber finally arrived, a beat-up Honda Civic, they tried to jam 4 people and their luxury bags into it. It was a tight squeeze. As the car drove away, disappearing into the snowy night, I felt a tear roll down my cheek. It wasn't a tear of regret. It was a tear of relief. The infection was gone. The wound could finally start to heal. Arthur, I said to the empty room. Arthur walked back into the frame. Yes, Jennifer. Thank you. Send the security team home to their families. Just set the alarm. Will do. Merry Christmas, Jennifer. Merry Christmas, Arthur. I disconnected the call. The screen went black. I sat in the silence of the Hawaiian afternoon. The sun was setting, painting the sky in purples and oranges. I heard running feet. Emily and Leo burst onto the lanai. Mommy, Mommy, look what we found. Emily held up a giant seashell. It's beautiful, baby, I said, pulling them both into a hug. Did you talk to Grandma? Emily asked. Yes, I nodded. We had a long talk. Is she still mad? No, I smiled, kissing her forehead. Grandma isn't our problem anymore. We are free. The next morning, Christmas Day, was the most peaceful day of my life. There were no passive-aggressive comments about my cooking, no criticism of the children's noise level, no demand for expensive gifts that would be unappreciated. We ordered room service pancakes. We played on the beach. We built a sandman instead of a snowman. But back in Chicago, the fallout was nuclear. My phone, which I had unblocked just to see the wreckage, was flooded with voicemails. Kevin, you bitch, the investors are pulling out. You ruined my life. Call me now. Mom, we are at a day's inn. The sheets are polyester. How dare you? Fix this immediately. Ashley, my friends saw the tow truck. I'm a laughingstock. I'm going to sue you. I didn't listen to all of them. I listened to just enough to confirm that the consequences were sticking. Then I changed my number. I didn't just block them. I called my provider and requested a new number entirely. I gave the new number to Arthur, Linda, and my closest friends. Everyone else got the disconnect tone. I also received an email from Linda. Subject, OMG. Message, Jen, everyone is talking about it. Kevin called me begging for a place to stay. I told him he could sleep in his car since he likes independence so much. Also, Timothy is safe with me. Thank you for the retainer check for the lawyer. I'm filing for full custody on Monday, citing his homelessness and fraud issues. You're my hero. I smiled. The alliance held. The satisfaction I felt wasn't malicious joy. It was the satisfaction of balance being restored to the universe. For too long, the scales had been tipped by their entitlement. I had simply stepped off the scale. We stayed in Hawaii for 10 days. By the time we returned to Chicago, the locks on the house had been changed, the security codes reset, and the contents packed up. Arthur had hired movers to take my parents' personal belongings, clothing, personal photos, toiletries, to a storage unit. He mailed them the key. Anything bought with my money, the furniture, the electronics, the art, remained in the house or was sold. I put the house on the market immediately. I couldn't live there. Too many ghosts. It sold in 3 days, a bidding war. I made a massive profit, which I put directly into trust funds for Emily, Leo, and Timothy. The golden child, Kevin, had accidentally funded the future of the children he despised. There was poetic justice in that. Thank you so much for sticking with me this far. You are an incredibly patient and supportive listener. If you are enjoying seeing justice served, please hit the like button and comment the number 1 below. It tells me you're riding this wave with me. Your support? 3 months later. The snow had melted, and the grim reality of life without a benefactor had set in for the Anderson family. Through Linda and Arthur, I got updates. I didn't seek them out, but in a small community, news travels. Kevin. The fraud lawsuit went forward. Without my money to settle it or hire a high-powered defense, he was crushed. He avoided jail time by taking a plea deal, but he has a felony record now. No legitimate investor will touch him. He's working as a shift manager at a car wash. Linda got full custody of Timothy. Kevin has supervised visitation rights, but he rarely shows up because he's too embarrassed to be seen taking the bus. Ashley divorced him 2 weeks after the eviction. Apparently, her love was conditional on the square footage of his house. Mom and Dad. This was the hardest part to hear, initially, but necessary. They burned through their remaining cash quickly. They couldn't rent a nice apartment because their credit scores were tanked, and I wasn't there to co-sign. They ended up in a small 1-bedroom apartment in a run-down part of town. It's a 4th-floor walk-up. My mother, Barbara, the woman who needed a wine budget and Persian rugs, had to get a job. She works part-time as a greeter at Walmart. A friend of mine saw her there. She told me, Mom keeps her head down, refuses to make eye contact with anyone who might recognize her. She tells people she's volunteering to stay active, but we all know the truth. She's working because she forgot to save for retirement, assuming I was her retirement plan. My father, Richard, drives for a rideshare app using a rented car. He looks older. He looks tired. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder if I was too harsh. But then I look at my daughter. She smiles more now. She doesn't ask if Grandma hates her. She knows she is loved. She knows her mother is strong. I protected my cubs. If that makes me a villain in their story, so be it. I'm the hero in ours. One afternoon in April, a letter arrived at my office. It had no return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was shaky, spidery script, my father's. I debated throwing it away unopened, but curiosity, or perhaps a lingering desire for closure, made me open it. Dear Jennifer, I know you probably won't read this. I don't blame you. I'm writing to say you were right about everything. Living here in this small apartment, I've had a lot of time to think. I realized that for 20 years, I chose the path of least resistance. I let your mother and Kevin run over you because it was easier than fighting them. I sacrificed my competent, loving daughter to protect the fragile egos of my wife and son. I miss you. I miss the grandkids. I have a picture of them taped to the dashboard of the taxi. It's the only thing that gets me through the shifts. I'm not asking for money. I'm not asking to move back in. I just wanted you to know that I am sorry. I failed you as a father. I see that now. Love, Dad. I sat with the letter for a long time. Tears pricked my eyes. It was the apology I had waited a lifetime to hear. But it was too late. Apologies without change are just manipulation. If I let him back in, Mom would follow. Kevin would follow. The cancer would return. He was sorry because he was suffering, not because he had hurt me. If they were still in that mansion, drinking my wine, he wouldn't be writing this letter. I walked over to the shredder. I fed the letter into the machine. I watched as his words turned into confetti. I didn't reply. Sometimes the most powerful message you can send is silence. Christmas the following year was different. I had bought a new house, a beautiful Victorian with a big porch, but it was cozy, not ostentatious. It was filled with warmth, not aesthetics. The guest list was small. Me, Emily and Leo, Linda and Timothy, Arthur and his wife, who, it turns out, makes excellent cookies, and a few close friends who had stood by me during the transition. The house was chaotic. There was wrapping paper everywhere. The kids were screaming and running around with a new puppy. There was juice spilled on the rug, and it was perfect. I sat on the sofa, holding a mug of hot cocoa, watching Emily and Timothy play. "Mommy, look!" Emily yelled. "Timothy made a fort." "That's amazing!" I cheered. Linda sat down next to me. She looked younger, happier. "You know," she said, clinking her mug against mine, "this is the first Christmas in 10 years I haven't taken a Xanax." I laughed. "Cheers to that." "Do you miss them?" she asked quietly. I thought about it. I thought about the silence of my phone. I thought about the lack of drama. I thought about the money sitting in my savings account instead of disappearing into a black hole. I miss the idea of them, I said honestly. I miss the family I wanted them to be, but I don't miss who they actually were. Amen, Linda said. I looked around the room. This was family. Family isn't just blood. Family is the people who respect you, the people who show up, the people who love your children even when they are sticky. I had reclaimed my life. I had turned my pain into power. And most importantly, I had broken the cycle. Emily and Leo would never know what it felt like to be used. They would only know what it felt like to be cherished. As the snow fell outside, covering the world in a clean white blanket, I whispered a silent thank you to the old Jennifer, the one who suffered so the new Jennifer could rise. And to my mother, wherever she was, I hoped she finally learned that people are more important than things. But if not, at least she learned not to mess with the person who holds the deed. The end. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I truly appreciate you being here. If you made it to the very end, you are special, part of the 1% who really listen. Please comment the letter A below so I can recognize you. And if this story resonated with you, or if you have ever had to stand up to family, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to check out the other videos on the channel for more stories like this. Take care of yourselves and remember, you are worth more than what you can provide.